And I will be recording this, so if you want to not have like your face show up, you can just keep your video turned off, or if you're fine with it, you can keep your video turned on. Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Harini, and today we'll be learning about variables, conditionals, loops, and also basic animation. So using the basic principles and fundamentals of Python and PyGame, you'll be able to create and design your very own snow animation by the end of this workshop. Okay, so first off, what is Python? Python is basically a general purpose, high-level OOP, or object-oriented programming language, that's used often, and it's relatively easy to learn because it reads almost like English. There are also many Python-based frameworks like Flask and Jinja. Additionally, Python is used in a huge variety of applications, from web and game development to machine learning, artificial intelligence, data science, and more. Like we just had Louis Valentin speak about how he uses Python even for CRISPR gene editing. So it's also used in many applications and services that you may use every day, like Google, YouTube, and Netflix. And today we'll be using PyGame, which is a specific set of Python modules that's designed to create simple games and animations in a way that's quick and efficient. Also, if you guys have any questions, you feel free to just unmute yourself and ask me, or you can put it in the chat and I'll try to check up on that. So today, for our programming purposes, we'll be using trinket.io just because I don't want to go through the process of downloading anything. This is the link to the website, which you guys can click here. Oh, here. Then once you're here, you're going to want to sign up for a free account, or if you already have an account, you can log in. Since I already have one, I'll just log in, but when you're signing up for a free account, you have to give them an email and also a password that you're going to remember. And just give me like a thumbs up or an okay in chat when you have your account ready and you're on this page. Okay, so I think almost everyone has their account set up. So now you're gonna have to be on your home page, and then you click New Trinket, and we'll be selecting a PyGame trinket. And once you click that, you'll have a page that looks like this. Here is where you'll be typing in your code. This is basically like an online browser-based IDE. So you can type it in, you can compile it, and it's going to run over here. And just let me know if you're at this point with the thumbs up. Cool, cool, okay. So the first thing that we're gonna talk about is the print command, which is a built-in command that Python has, and it uses it to display information as text to the console or the shell. And you'll notice that the text has to be in quotes. And we can just run an example of that, print hello world, just like that. And then when you run this, you'll see in the console here that it says hello world. So this is gonna be your text output console, and here's where your animations are gonna happen. So you can all just try this out and print some words. And then another important feature that Python has is comments, which are basically just ways for you to take notes on your program or explain what something does. So here you have a single line comment, and it's just, if you put a hashtag in front of the line, it's going to be a comment, And if you want multiple lines, you have to put these triple quotes. So we can do an example of that. And if you run your program again, you'll notice that this doesn't actually change anything. It just exists for you to know what's going on. Is this similar to code in Bonnie? I'm not sure what that is. What is code in Bonnie? Is that like in browser IDE? I'm not sure. Sorry. So you guys can add comments, which will be useful later when you're trying to explain. Oh, Python coding. Yes, it is. So this is Python, and PyGame is like kind of a subset of Python, if that makes sense. So yeah, what we're gonna do here, this is all Python. So another feature that Python has is something called variables, which you can think of like an empty box inside which you can store things. So what you can store in Python are values in the form of integers, strings, floats, and booleans, and then you can give that box a name. So here you're creating something called number. Number is its name, and inside it you're storing a value of 10. So you see here when you print a number, it prints what's inside of number, which is 10. You can do the same thing with hello as a string. So words are stored as strings and quotes. You can have decimals, which are called floats. And finally, booleans. Booleans you can think of like an on and off switch. So it's going to have two values, only two values, true or false, written with a capital T true or a capital F false. And we'll also be using booleans in our program. So you guys can try out some variables like num equals 10. You can change the value of it to something else like this will show you how you can reassign values to variables. So originally it was 10, and then after that it prints word. This is because Python is going to read your program top down. So do we have any questions at this point? Or you could try typing in these commands and seeing what they do. Okay, I think you're all okay so far. Another thing is what's called conditionals. They're also known as if and else statements. And oh, do we have a question? Oh, okay, that's fine. Just let me know if I can like help you out anyway. And also this will be recorded, so we'll send you as a recording if for some reason you're not able to do any of these right now. All right, so with if and else statements, you'll be doing, this is how you're going to give your program logic. This is how it's going to be able to decide things for itself. As you can see here, you're creating a variable, which we just learned about, and inside it, you're storing the word yes. And if answer is equal to yes, then you're going to print yay. Else, which means if answer is not yes, then you're going to print aw and then a sad face. Another thing to note here is the equal sign is how you're going to compare two values. So this is like a comparison thing. And also you have to make sure that you're indenting. Everything that is indented underneath this if statement is going to happen inside of it. And if it's not indented, it's going to happen outside of it. Yeah, so you also need to make sure that when you're typing things, you are using the correct case. So if you're typing in uppercase, that's not going to work. This is because it's a computer running this, so it's going to only understand a specific kind of language. So we can test out some if statements here using num. Oh, let me just delete this previous thing. Okay. All right, I forgot to define. I accidentally deleted my definition. Okay, so as you can see, we created this variable and we're checking if it's the same, and it is the same, so you're printing this. And if it's not the same, like if I just, so then when the computer's checking it, it's like, okay, it's not the same, so we have to print this value instead. Here we have for and while loops, which are two methods in which you can do a set of things multiple times. So if you want to, for whatever reason, print hello 5 times, you can do it in two ways, with the for loop right here, or with the while loop, which is here. And I'll just quickly explain both of these after typing them. So for, and then you give it a number, and it has to be inside of a range. So if you want it to happen 5 times, you do 0, 5. If you want it 10 times, you do 0, 10. So it's going to go from 0 to 10. And each time that number increases, it's going to print the word. You can see down there that there's like 10 hellos. There's more if I scroll. Yeah, that's how a for loop works. And if you wanted to do this as a while loop, which is the second type, you'll see here, you have to first define the variable. I did something. Create a number 0. And while this number is less than 10, we're going to print hello. And also, we're going to increase the value of number by 1 each time that this thing happens. So when we start off, number is 0, which is less than 10, so it's going to print hello, and then it's going to increase number by 1. So now number is going to be 0 plus 1 is 1, which still fits the condition, so it's going to happen again. That number will be 2, and so on until it's 10. This value stops being met, and the loop ends. What is a while loop? Okay, so yeah, I just explained that like this right here is a while loop, and it's basically going to do whatever's inside it as long as this condition that you give it up here is being met. So as long as this is true, everything that's indented is going to keep happening over and over. The moment this becomes false, so the moment number is greater than 10 or equal to 10, this will stop happening and it'll go outside of the while loop. So that was like the basics of Python, and now, okay, cool. That was the basics of Python, and then now just one important thing about PyGame. I'm not sure how far you guys have gotten in your math classes, but hopefully you've encountered the coordinate plane, you know, this thing with the 4 quadrants and all the numbers. So the PyGame coordinate system is quite different from the coordinate plane, but also similar. The way it's going to work is you have the y values, which are going to be the vertical position on your screen, and you have the x values, which are going to be a horizontal position on the screen. And it's going to go from the leftmost value being 0 and the rightmost value being 100, assuming you, that's depending on like your definition of how big the screen should be. So let's say you make a 100 by 100 screen, 100 pixels this way, 100 pixels this way. The leftmost is going to be 0, the rightmost is going to be 100. And then for your vertical values, the top is going to be 0 and the bottom is going to be 100. And you'll see here, if we want to put this at like a certain spot of the screen, we give it a certain x value and y value, and it plots it there on your screen. Do we have any questions at this point? Anything that you guys didn't understand or I should explain again? Okay, I think that's a no. So we can start getting to the stuff. Where did my speaker notes? Yeah, so we can start doing our snowfall animation, which is this is going to be the finished product. You have done this in Scratch but not in Python. Okay, that's cool. So then you can see how it's a little bit different in Python, but the same overall logic. Let me see if I still have my example. I think I need to share my screen again. Can you guys see the snow falling on the screen? Is Scratch similar to Python? Okay, so Scratch is a block-based programming, which is gonna introduce you to programming, right? So most computers won't be able to actually read Scratch, but the overall logic, like Scratch also has things like variables, if statements, for loops. So the overall logic of Scratch is based off of the logic that's gonna be in other programming languages like Python and even Java. Yeah. So if you've done Scratch, then you might be familiar with some of these concepts, but probably not the syntax, which is what's different. Syntax is like the grammar of a programming language. And speaking of syntax, we first have to do a few things. In order to use PyGame in Python, we have to import the PyGame module, which is just going to be import PyGame. We're also going to be using random numbers, so we have to import the random module. After which we start our PyGame. To do that, pygame.init is how we initialize it. And I'll be putting these in chat, and if you guys are able to copy paste out of it, you can copy paste it into your trinket as well. And if you're not, then you can copy it. And now we need to create our screen and give it some dimensions. So we can set the width of our screen to be 800 pixels. I found that this works pretty well. The height of our screen can be also 800. And then to actually make the screen, which we'll name it display, we do pygame.display.set. So this sets the display of Pygame with the mode, and then you have to give it a width and a height value so it knows how big to make it. Now when we're writing width here, it's giving it 800, and we're writing height, it's giving it 800 because that's the values that we defined. We also need to set a caption for your window. We can call it snowfall. You can put whatever you want in here as long as it's inside the quotes. And we're going to make a Boolean variable which is called true. And you'll see where this comes into use later, but for now just make sure that's there. And also something called a clock. And what this does is it creates in PyGame something, a clock, and that essentially manages how fast your frames are moving. The way videos and stuff work is there's different frames and they move at a set rate of certain frames per second. And that's what we have to set up here. And then we are going to give our snow some attributes. Our snow needs a speed, which we can make 10. We also need a number of snowballs, which we'll make 300 snowflakes. The snow needs a size. We can have it be 8 pixels on the screen. Your snow needs a color. Wait, I'll just copy paste these for now. And do let me know if I need to slow down. The way PyGame takes colors, it's gonna take an R, G, and B value, which is a red value, a green value, and blue value. And then it mixes all of those numbers together to create your color. And each of these values are gonna go from 0 to 255. And since we want our snow to be white, that's gonna be 255 for each of the RGB. We also need a background color, And I just found this nice sky blue made of these numbers right here. And now we have to create something where all our snowflakes are going to be stored. So our virtual snowflakes are going to be stored in this empty list, which you can create by just putting these brackets here. And that's where all of our snowflakes are going to go. Really quick to explain the concept of these snowflakes, they're going to all be stored as a virtual set of positions. So every snowflake is going to have an X and Y position. That's what's going to be stored in here. And then later on in the program, we're going to draw each of those positions onto the screen, and that's how you'll be able to see the virtual snowflakes. Do we have any questions so far? Okay. And remember that I mentioned frames per second. We'll call it FPS, and we'll give an FPS of 30 frames per second, I think is all right. Can I explain the last line? Do you mean the snowflakes line? I think you do. Okay. So basically, we've created an empty list called snowflakes. A list is going to store multiple values in one thing. And in here, we're going to put all of the positions of our virtual snowflakes later on. That way we can draw each of them onto the screen using a draw function. Is that all right? Okay. And you'll remember we need to use a for loop because we don't want to actually input each of the 300 snowflakes. That's horrifying. So we'll just use a for loop for that. So what we have here is the snow position is going to be in the range of 0 until snow num. And snow num, as you can see, is 300. So it's going to make 300 snowflakes by doing it like this. So we're going to create an x value. And our x value, we want it to be a random number between 0 and the width, because we have to have it inside the screen. To do that, we use the random syntax. And then the same thing for the y value, but instead 0 to the height. So now we have a random x value on the screen and a random y value. And we want to add it to snowflakes. To do that, it's snowflakes.append. So this will call the append function on snowflakes and put this value, which is this, inside of it. And I just put that in chat for anyone who wants to copy paste it. Feel free to also include comments. So maybe if you wanted to explain, like this creates the positions and adds them to the list or something like that, you can just add explanations like that. Here we're going to have our animation loop, which is called the game loop if you're making a game, but here it's going to be an animation loop. So as long as run is equal to true, we want to have the animation running. And run is equal to true, so it's going to work. Here's a quick bit of syntax. I'm just going to type it out and then explain it. So basically what this does is it's going to just get some events, and if you're trying to close your PyGame window, then it's going to set run equal to false, and that way the loop will stop running and your program will end. This is just something that we need to write. Also make sure that as you've been typing this, you're having your indentations correctly. Because all of this is indented, that means it's inside the while loop. This is all inside the for loop, and this is inside the if statement. Now, outside of that, but still inside the while loop, you want to give your display a color. So you can fill your display with the background color. I'm just going to zoom in case it's hard to see. I think that's better. Okay. So at this point, you're going to want to take each of your snow positions in Snowflakes. We know that for loops can loop through a certain set of numbers a certain amount of times, but for loops also have another feature where you can go through a list of values. So let's say you have a list of like 10 numbers, then you can have a for loop go through each one of those numbers in order. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to loop through our entire list of 300 snowflakes, which looks empty now, but really we've already added everything in here. So it's not actually empty. And then for each of our snow positions have an X and a Y value. And in order to get the Y value, to get the X value, you have to do snow position and choose the 0th value, which is the first one. To get the Y value, you have to choose the first value, which is actually the second one, because for some reason it starts from 0. So you're gonna take the Y value, and then you're gonna add the speed to it. So let's say our snowflake has a Y value of 0. That means it's gonna be at the top of the screen. And if we add the speed to it, and the speed is 10, that's gonna make the Y value 10. That'll make it move down the screen. If you add 10 again, it'll go 20, 30, 40, all the way till it hits the bottom of the screen. Yeah, so at the end of this workshop, I will give you guys a set of links that I also use to learn. So yeah, you can just wait for that. And those I would recommend for starting with Python. Okay, so this is how we're gonna make our snowflakes move down the screen. And then we have to actually draw them, which PyGame has a pygame.draw.circle, which will draw a circle. And the circle needs 4 values. It needs where to draw the circle. We want to draw on the display. It needs a color, so we're going to give it the snow color. It needs a position, so we're going to give it the snow position. And finally, it needs a size, so we're going to give it the snow size. And that's how we're going to draw our actual snowflake. Now, once you draw the snowflake, there's something else to consider. Like I mentioned, you're going to keep adding 10 to your snow position. So what's going to happen when it goes above 800? You're not going to be able to see it anymore. At that point, you want to reset the position of the snowflake to the top of the screen so it can start falling again. And here's where our if statements are going to come in. So if the Y value of our snow is greater than the height, then we're going to reset it to a random number from -50 to -5. That will make it above the screen, and then it'll keep falling until it falls all the way back down again. And I'm going to put this in chat for you guys to copy paste. And we're almost done. There's just 2 lines left at this point. So okay, now make sure you're only having 1 indent off the side. That'll make sure you're inside the while loop only. Here we're going to have pygame.display.update. This is a very important line. This is what tells PyGame that you want to refresh the screen, essentially, and show the new image and show the changes. And underneath that, we have to make our clock tick at a certain frame rate per second. And that's also going to set the speed of your snow falling. And if you have everything typed correctly until this point, why is that indented? Okay, if you have everything typed correctly, then you should be able to see your snow falling, which looks a bit glitchy here, but that's because I'm running Zoom. So yeah. Is it working for everyone? If you have any problems, you can ask them in chat and we can get it to work. Or if yours is working, then if you could let me know in chat or give me a thumbs up. Okay, so no one's really saying anything. I'll assume that maybe it's working, hopefully. And if it is working, that means you can mess around with some things if you so choose. The fun thing about programming is you can make things work the way that you want it to work. So if you want faster snow or slower snow, you can change your speed. You can make more snow. You can make tiny snow. You can make red snow on like a black background. Or if you want, feel free to change your frames per second or the size of your screen. You can just mess around and make your own thing. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if we have no questions, then I guess we finished. Oh wait, I said a question. Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, if we have no questions, then I guess we finished like earlier than I expected. So I will show you guys some links for how if you're learning Python, python.org.doc. It's a quite clunky website, but it has like all the documentation you'll ever need for like anything. There's W3 schools for Python. I definitely recommend this one. They have a lot of like examples and tutorials. There's also Codecademy. They have like video tutorials and that kind of thing. And Geeks for Geeks. They have some more advanced topics, but also very helpful. And I think that you guys will be getting these slides in an email or something like that. Or if you do want these slides, then you can send me your email and I'll email it to you. That's all. Thank you guys for coming. And you can email us with any feedback or sign up for a mailing list. Yeah, that's the end of this workshop. And I think we can head back into like the main room or something. I'll stop recording now.